With all the hype around Canon FDs in recent years, you've probably heard of the SSC sphericals and the Ls. These are the highest quality FDs that Canon ever made, and if you want the best of the best, these are what you go for. With the 24mm and the 85mm, the Ls are your fastest options, as Canon didn't make any non-L versions of these lenses with similar aperture speeds. This, however, is not the case with the 50mm. Along with the 50mm f1.2 L, Canon also made a 50mm f1.2 non-L version. And that kind of begs the question, is the L worth it? When I was looking at photos of these lenses online, I assumed they were the same size. They look very similar. They're both 50mm, they both have a 52mm front thread, and they both have a maximum aperture of f1.2. But they are indeed a little different. The L is actually slightly taller than the regular f1.2, and the rubber focus ring is actually one segment taller if you count them, which is great if you've got sausages for fingers. The L also seems to be a little bit wider, as when I made follow focus gears for both these lenses, the gear for the L was loose on the regular f1.2. The L also has a slightly longer focus throw, but it's only like 10 to 20 degrees. The Canon 50mm f1.2 L is considered to be one of the best and most optically advanced 50mm lenses ever put to market. The main difference is that the L, like the SSC sphericals, uses an spherical element in its construction, unlike the regular 50mm 1.2, which is all spherical elements. The L has 8 elements in 6 groups, while the regular f1.2 only has 7 elements in 6 groups. The L also has a floating element design to correct for aberrations, and while I'm not certain, I could not find anything in any of my research that said whether or not the regular 1.2 has this floating element design or not. The standard f1.2 also has a regular focusing helicoid that moves the entire optical block forward and back, while the L's is slightly different because the rear piece of glass is fixed in the mount. At f1.2, the L is quite sharp with great colors and a very nice fall off. I was very pleased at how this lens looked wide open at f1.2, considering it's almost 40 years old. Stopping down sharpens up the image a little and adds depth of field. At f1.2, the regular 50mm is noticeably softer and a little bit smeary compared to the L, but not bad by any means. I may have just slightly missed focus on this, as I was trying to pull focus on a 5-inch monitor that was about 5 feet from me. Stopping down the aperture adds sharpness and depth of field and makes the image a lot closer to the L. While the image of the regular f1.2 is great, it can't quite hold up to the L. Both of these lenses being f1.2 means that you can really blow out the background on whatever you're shooting, and the quality of the bokeh looks very pleasing to me personally. They both have a bit of that softness that FDs are just known for. While the L's aspherical element corrects for corner aberrations, it does cause a bit of onion skinning to appear in the bokeh. I had to bring the highlights way down on this shot to really be able to see the onion skinning, so it might not be that big of an issue for you, but if you absolutely hate it, then you might want to go with the regular 1.2. One thing that is the same in the bokeh with these two lenses is the amount of cutting. A lot of times with modern lenses, you'll really only see the bokeh cut right towards the edges of the frame or the corner, but with these, it happens like a quarter of the way into the frame. Stopping down the lens will cut back on a lot of this, but it will also show an octagon shape due to the 8 blades of the iris. But now we get into how these lenses flare, which is a huge selling point for me personally, as I love dirtying up my image with some flares, and both of these flare very nicely. Although I do prefer the flares of the L quite a bit more than the regular 1.2. The L just seems to have a bit more magic to it and just more dimension, and this could be attributed to it having one extra element, and one of those elements being aspherical. You also get this like red ring when the lens is wide open, as well as a few rainbow flares, which I didn't really see on the regular 1.2. The flares on the regular 50mm are nice, but after testing it against the L, it just feels like they're missing a bit of magic. In terms of minimum focus distance, both of these lenses have a minimum focus distance of 0.5 meters, so you're not going to get any advantages when going with the L. The floating element design is supposed to correct for aberrations at close focus, but to my eye, I couldn't tell much of a difference between the two lenses. But also, who knows, the regular 1.2 might also have the same floating element design, and I just couldn't find it. Chromatic aberration. Yep, they both have it. They're both vintage photo lenses. What do you expect? But it's nothing too crazy. You're fine. Both of these lenses show a decent amount of focus breathing, and to my eye, there's no difference depending on which lens you go with. Focus breathing can be pretty distracting for a viewer and is rarely a desired trait, but pretty much any vintage photo lens you get is gonna have some amount of breathing. Also, this was a pretty extreme test to show it, because how often are you racking from close focus to infinity quickly while locked off on a tripod? Because for me, it's never. Well, I guess it happened at least once because I did it now. But now we get to the elephant in the room. The price difference between these two lenses is immense, for them both being the same focal length with the same maximum aperture. The regular 50mm typically sells for between $250 and $350 in good shape, while the L is 3 to 4 times this price at $800 to $1,200. And from what I've seen in these tests, the regular f1.2 gets awfully close to the L in most cases. Is the image from the L better? Yes. Is the image from the L 4 times better? I don't think so. Personally, I'll be keeping the L in my lens set since I already have a full set of the Ls, so might as well keep it consistent. Also, those flares are so good. So what do you think of the FDL versus the regular FD? Is there one that you particularly like more? And do you think that it's worth 4 times the price? I would love to hear your comments below. Anyway, that is gonna do it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing. It really does help this channel out, and I will see you in the next one.